Hello there. Quiet on Twitch on the replay. My mic audio is already maxed out on Twitch, so if it's a problem of my volume relative to anyone else's who's talking, then I can lower the desktop audio so you guys come through quieter, and then whoever's listening could just increase the volume. Unless I can change this to increase the volume beyond the max. What's the scope of things we can ask? Anything game related. Anything at all. You can also ask other stuff. We might answer it. I don't know. Looks like we do have someone in the Twitch chat. Hello there. As usual, we'll give it a few minutes for people to file in, and then we'll get started. Do Quarg prefer waffles or pancakes? I don't know. How about you go ask them? They're right there. There's like a trillion of them. You think they all prefer the same thing? Moctive says pancakes, but with a hole in the middle. Can I get Derpy's SSN? No. Onion ring, says Doom. Any plans for more interactions between factions, such as factions attempting to occupy an orbit, a system's orbit? For example, free will holding the orbit of a republic world. Well, that would be a story interaction. Unless you mean like random events that can happen. How do you occupy an orbit? Yeah, that's a good question. Blockade. All right, well, I guess people are already throwing questions in chat. I'll just do my usual intro. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our 36th monthly developer campfire chat. This is something we do the first Saturday of every month at this time, give or take an hour. And it's just a place for players of the game to show up and ask questions and for us to talk about some stuff that we're working on. There is a submission form, a Google form that you can go to submit questions. If you want to guarantee that we will see it, you can also access that form when we are not actively streaming. But since we are here right now, you can ask questions in the Twitch chat and the Discord chat, and we will get to them if we see them. Looks like I am currently joined by Doom and Warp among the dev team. Others may or may not show up as the chat progresses. We usually do this for like an hour and a half-ish. We'll see how long we go for today. We do have 5 submitted questions so far, which is more than last time. I think last time there was none. Maybe 1 the moment we started. So we do have things to get through there. Republic campaign when? It's sorry to inform you, but we just delayed it by another month because you asked. There's no set date on it right now. We do have people working on it. I don't know how actively they're working on it at the moment. I haven't kept too closely with the progress on that, but If Roadrunner shows up, you can ask her. Or you can go to the, I think there's a server for it. You can try to look in there. Yes, I meant random, such as blockades. The game doesn't really have the best structure right now for having random events like that, without it getting rather cluttered in terms of the things in the save file. I mean, it's better than it was before, I'll tell you that. But the setup of something like that would be very cumbersome, because in a lot of cases you need to name a specific location. So if we wanted to say have 10 planets where something could randomly happen, there would need to be a separate event for each of those 10 planets. You couldn't just have one event that you define that randomly chooses one of 10 planets to do something at. Any comments on the future of Endless Sky on Android/F-Droid given Google's coming crackdown on the platform? I enjoy Endless Sky on my phone on occasion. Well, that would be a question for the Weird Nut, who is actually the guy who makes the Android port for the game. The port is not like an official thing, although we really do appreciate the work he does on that, because none of us are doing it. Doom says, I thought the whole point of F-Droid was that it's a third-party platform not beholden to the will of Google. Yeah, I'm not sure on the details of what Google is doing with the F-Droid. Is it something about, like, was that the whole drama with them trying to crack down on sideloading, in parentheses, downloading a file like you just would on a computer? Because if that's the case, then, I mean, that's more a general question for anyone who's using the F-Droid store, and sideloading stuff / downloading stuff on their own phones. Not really something that we specifically will be handling. Warp says most of these aren't real questions, referring to the stuff that's been submitted. Yeah, I'm sure. It's usually how it goes. What are all the campaigns being planned? Well, in terms of planned, there's a lot of plans. In terms of what's being done, it's a much smaller list. The Wander campaign still needs finished. That is still at 2/3 completion for a decade. Republic campaign, Syndicate campaign, Pirate campaign, most likely at some point. There's been talk about a Merchant campaign where you don't join any particular side of the main war. Alpha campaign is somewhere out there in the aether. So there's the plans. And I'm sure there's other people talking about... I mean, that's even just like the human stuff, plus the Wanderers. There's Gegno's storyline that still needs done. Avgi's being worked on, ostensibly. Coalition, lots of stuff. So stay tuned. There's always something new showing up every update, at least. Okay, Keaton says, could we improve faction and planets? Or I guess replying to that. Colony sim improvement, trade sim improvement, terraforming, blockades, as you just said, automation and more revenue sources. Something like automated trade routes that buys at point A and sells at point anything, where profit margins need to be X, or just specific planets. You get the idea. Implementation is up in the air. Some stuff for late game, like making space stations and such. I'm guessing pilot skills / traits wouldn't be added. This isn't Spore. I like the enthusiasm, but our goal isn't to make it so that the late game is like almost a completely different game from the early game and have the mechanics of the game, evolve as you get further into it. The game is intended to largely remain focused on you, your flagship, and your escorts. It's not something where you're going to be able to set up terraforming of your own or have your own space colony or your own station, although there are plugins for some of that. What is it? It's the, I know Ursa Polaris is the one where you build your own station, but there's another one where you can set up trade routes. And I'm forgetting the name, and I think it has business in the name, but if anybody remembers which one that is. So there are plugins for these types of things, if that's like the direction you want to go down, in terms of how you want to play the game. But in terms of the base vanilla game, it's unlikely we're going to be doing anything like that. At best, we'll add some functionality for plugins to be able to use and create stuff like that, but it's not something the main game is going to partake in. I know that in the past, there have been similar requests, and the idea is like, well, if you want to play a game like that, then you should find another game that's closer to that. We're not trying to become the everything game, because we have limited time. As I say, typically, whenever it's brought up, this is a hobby project. It's a volunteer project for everyone involved. We don't have the countless hours that a game development studio might have to really flesh out all of these features that you're talking about. I think it's a lot more healthy for the game if we, as I said, kind of focus on what our core plan for the game is, make that as good as it can be, and then leave the rest up to plugins. Google's making it so that if you want to sideload apps, you have to jump through 100 hoops, but we don't know the exact details yet of exactly what they are doing, so asking for solutions is preliminary. Yeah, that sounds about right to me. Is there any work currently being done on finishing the Wanderer campaign? That would be a question for Doom, which I think last time was asked. The answer was not at the moment. Perhaps paradoxically, you would think summer would be a time where we increase how quickly we're developing things. I find that it tends to be the opposite. Less stuff usually gets done during the summer just because people are out doing other things in other places. I feel like winter is usually our peak hours, peak time for development. Because everyone's stuck indoors, you know? Nothing else to do. Lynn says, speaking of escorts, in Avorian, I guess another game, you have the F9 command mode where you can order ships to hold their position, move to a location, and hold or engage a set target. There's also a few mods that freeze time when you enter the command mode. Any plans on proper command mode similar to that? I think you can already do all of that. You can pause the game. I think it's default to P. And when I say pause, I mean like pause all the ships moving, not just like enter a menu by hitting escape. You can, if you select your escorts and then right-click on a location space, they will move there and hold that location. If you right-click on a target or use the fight my target command, they will engage that target. You can already use the a hold position command, which I think is default H. At least that's what I have it bound to. So I guess the question is, what more are you looking for that we don't already have in that regard? Or is it just a matter of you didn't even know that stuff existed? Roadrunner says Republic campaign is still being worked on, mostly in DMs rather than a whole new server. Development has slowed down a bit, mainly due to real-life stuff getting in the way, but it'll be picked up soon. We're writing the prologue right now. Okay, yeah. If I remember correctly, there's a petition against the Google changes. Yeah, as if they're going to listen to that. Nicholas says, in the end, every game becomes a plugin engine, and the main campaign is just the default plugin it ships with. And then in terms of the Wander campaign, Doom says, it's not being worked on. I'm unfortunately unable to see through long-term projects. Rip. You need to find devs with no lives. Dang. Lynn says, I legit didn't know there was a pause mode. Well, check the, make sure you're checking the change logs. Make sure you're looking through the settings and the commands after every update, because we do add new commands and settings, usually. The pause mode is newer. I think it's been around for a bit, but it's a newer command relative to the history of the game. More ways to waste cash on space food and space tourist traps and space movies and space knickknacks would be greatly appreciated. I yearn for the credit sync. Not sure if I'll be working on that. All right, well, let me get to these submitted questions. I'm listening back to the YouTube VOD, and I feel... Okay, yeah, Warp already pointed that one out. Can you make yourself louder, please? I mean, I'm as loud as I can go, to my understanding. Let me fiddle around with it. Filters, no. Properties, question mark? No? I mean, can you just turn me up? I can hold the mic closer. How's this? Is this better? If I get real close to the mic? Am I loud enough? But how my mic is in my face and I can't see the questions. Why are you making the progression more tedious without any new content of substance? Not harder, mind you, just more tedious. What's been made more tedious? I would like specifics in this regard. If anybody here submitted this question on the 25th, and you would like to elaborate, or if anyone has any ideas of what this question is referring to, I would appreciate thoughts. Much better, someone says. It sounds too sensual. You're quite intimate now. Kind of like ASMR, but better. Let's go. I'll keep it like this. I have headphones. Please get out of my skull. Warp says so many of the questions we get are just slander. Why did you kill my cat? Tangled Shroud, maybe? I mean, if it was specifically the Tangled Shroud, I would feel like that would be pointed out. I guess the only thing that's tedious is that you got to travel through dark space, so you got to jump one by one, just a bit more clicky-clicky. The question feels more general than that. It's like, why are you making progression tedious everywhere? Again, I'm not really sure. And also Warp says, yeah, but that's new content. The Tangled Shroud is new content. So what do you mean? But they said new content of substance. Maybe they don't think the Tangled Shroud has much substance to it. ASMR mode, yep. Lynn says, honestly, some sort of extra armor plates or shield capacitors would be nice for when you get outfit space on a combat-based ship where you don't want extra cargo and passenger space. In that case, you can already add more shield generators. Historically, we have shied away from adding outfits that just straight up increase health on ships, though. It's possible to make them. We just don't have them in vanilla. And the idea there is that the ship you get when you buy a ship, like you have the shell. The shell has certain stats that are intrinsic to it, including outfit space, weapon space, engine space, hard points, but then also shields and hull. If you want more hull or more shields, then you should buy a bigger and better ship instead of trying to add something to the ship you have now that just turns it into another ship. For similar reasons, there's not... Although, I guess similar reasons, design-wise, we don't have anything that like adds a cargo bay or adds a fighter bay or a drone bay or a new turret mount to a ship. Although, there's also technical reasons for that. The extra hull and extra shield capacitors, that's simple in terms of creating an outfit that does it. Like I said, plugins probably. I've done that plenty of times, but we just don't have it in vanilla. Also, Doom says more shield gen, more batteries, more energy, etc. Perhaps. Yeah, I feel like there's already a fair few things that you can add to a combat ship if you have spare space that that aren't increasing its base HP. What are your favorite Endless Sky ships as developers? And do you use different swizzle colors? I don't use different swizzle colors. There's actually an active thread on the Steam forums where somebody asked this question, and I gave my answers. The Airy, the Sojourner, and the Tempest. If I were to pick like a top 3, those are up there. Lynn says, fair enough. Just feels weird that we're in space and no one has thought to add ERA, or extra plating onto a craft to me. In terms of, I'm guessing ERA is supposed to be like something for shields. In lore, the shield capacity is linked to the hull of the ship. It's not like you can just add something that increases your shield capacity, because it's almost like the hull plating has its own shields to it. If you go to GitHub and pull up the player's manual, it's mentioned in there. I mean, I guess as long as I'm in ASMR mode, I can pull it up and read it for you. Ooh. All ships, at a bare minimum, need a steering system, thruster, power source to drive them. To travel between star systems, the ship also needs a hyperdrive. Where's it at? No, this isn't it. There's another place where it's mentioned. Here it is, under the hull and shield section. Although most pilots today think of energy shields as purely for protection in combat, they were originally designed as a defense against cosmic radiation. Later, they were strengthened enough to deflect micro-asteroids and other space debris. These early shield generators created a spherical ring around the ship, generally at some distance away from the hull, because a powerful enough impact could distort the field and bend it inward. That was back in the early days of interstellar travel. Today's integrated shield matrices are an order of magnitude more powerful and efficient, in part because they are custom fitted to the shape of a ship rather than extending far outside it. But because the emitters that maintain the shield matrix are integrated into the hull, you cannot increase the strength by swapping in a different shield generator. The only way to significantly boost your shield strength is to buy a stronger ship. Instead, modern shield generators serve only to recharge the matrix, which is still a very useful function, especially if you are able to gain a brief respite from combat. Some shield generators, in fact, are so powerful that they can keep shields at full strength even when under constant fire from an energy blaster, which is like the weakest thing in the game. So it's like, okay, and recharging shields takes energy, but typically much less energy than your other systems draw. So yeah, that's the lore explanation for why there's no outfits that increase your shield and hull capacity. As for the design explanation, that is actually located in the creating outfits and ships page. At the very bottom under balancing. In Escape Velocity, the classic series of games that Endless Sky is patterned after, there were some outfits that were so powerful compared to their size that there was no reason to not install them if you could afford it. For example, outfits that took no space and provided or improved your acceleration and turn rate, or very small outfits that boosted your shields considerably. As a result, those games needed to put a limit on how many of each outfit could be installed. In Endless Sky, I'm attempting to have the balancing happen naturally, without putting fixed limits on how many copies of an outfit you can install. For example, that means that more powerful outfits tend to be larger or much more expensive, or both, and may have other side effects like generating a lot of heat or requiring more energy than other alternatives. However, it is still quite possible to do things like buying a bulk freighter and installing 30 outfits expansions, which then lets you pack in an absurd amount of shield generators. If outfits were provided that could increase your shield or hull strength, or your weapon or engine capacity, it would be very hard to keep the game balanced. A Bactrian freighter would have the capacity to be far more powerful than any warship, just because of its large cargo space. So when creating new outfits, it's important to keep in mind not just what you think would be cool, but whether your new outfit will be unbalanced. If you're creating a weapon that's so good that no ship will install anything else, that's a balance problem. So yeah, that's the in-universe, then out-of-universe explanation for shields and hull. And also, the Maricat points out there are a number of more shield / more hull, more armor mods out there if you really want more. Yeah. Do you plan to add more galaxies in the future? I have said no. At best, you might get a satellite galaxy of the Milky Way, but we're not going to send you to Andromeda. If that's the question. Warp says the next question is, are you happy? Not with the quality of these submitted questions. Area's Peak. Doom says the Splinter is his favorite. I like how it's more comfortable. It's got comfortable mobility and a good amount of cargo. Yeah. It's been a while since I played, but do ships that board you when you're disabled initiate a combat sequence yet? No. Thank you, Moktiv, for linking the player's manual. Would it be possible to establish a spaceport gossip function to help corral new players in the direction of storyline missions? Like if you haven't started / continued some of the storyline missions in 6 months, it helped point you in the direction of exploring the rich storylines that new players don't even know exist. We have some stuff like that, but it won't constantly remind you if you haven't done something yet. If you're never visiting the spaceport, there is something that will show up telling you like, hey, remember to visit the spaceport. That's where the story is. And then there are some missions that can happen outside of free world space that kind of drag you towards free world space. If the free worlds exist already and you haven't engaged with their storyline yet. But there's nothing that's really designed to force the player into, maybe not even force, but like you say, corral the player into starting a storyline. Lynn says, less gameplay-related question and more game engine tech. Being able to change the colors, not free painting, of ships in your fleet would be nice instead of just standard blue. I like the blue, just not on every ship in my fleet. Or is this just not possible? It is, well, it's possible to change the color of your entire fleet, but there's nothing set up right now to be able to allow you to change the color of an individual ship. At the same time, though, in universe, the color of the ship is used to distinguish who it's from. And even during the start of the Free Worlds campaign, you can ask, like, why do I have to color my ship green? And they're like, well, it'd basically be a war crime if you didn't. If you didn't identify yourself properly. Although that is in the context of during the campaign. So maybe, like, after that, it probably doesn't matter as much. But yeah, there's just nothing like that right now. Lore Universe question. I know ships can travel at faster than light, but how does information travel? The news about the nuclear bombing travels across the Republic all at once, it seems. Well, if you would read the recent discussion in the Republic dev room, I will admit the game is a little inconsistent on this point. Some places make it sound like it is almost instantaneous. Other places do refer to a delay in communications. But if you read the post I put in the Republic dev room recently, my idea is that there is a delay, but it is low enough that you can get information from one side of human space to the other within the span of 24 hours. Now, there's a lot of room within 24 hours. Like, is it 1 hour to get from one end to the other? Is it 12 hours? Does it take the whole 24 hours? The game does not explain this. But given how missions play out, I think it makes sense to think that there is some delay. But yeah, Moktiv linked it for you. But that it's not longer than 24 hours just because of how the news of the bombing can get from one end of from the center of the galaxy, or from human space rather, to the edges within the span of a day. As for how the information is transferred, I kind of think it's fine to leave that unexplained. I feel like Endless Sky is more soft sci-fi than hard sci-fi. I think as soon as you try and become hard sci-fi where you're explaining everything, then it takes away some of the, magic, soul, vibe, I don't know, of the game and its story. Because then you start arguing about the, the specifics of like, oh, that doesn't make actual physical sense. That wouldn't happen in real life, blah, blah, blah. It's got, okay, well, come on, we're talking about faster than light travel. Like, at a certain point, I think it's better to just kind of not explain things. This topic has come up multiple times before. What is the oh my god, what was the quote that somebody posted before of like, don't give numbers? How heavy is the sword? It's heavy. Like, I'm not going to tell you how heavy it is. Just, it's heavy. All right, let me try and make sure I'm scrolling to the... I'm going to skim over some commentaries. I'm kind of falling behind. Nicholas says, put the information on an FTL ship. That would imply the information takes a day to get from one system to another, which doesn't line up. All right, looks like we have some things on... Why are you commenting on Twitch and in Discord? Lynn. ERA is explosive reactive armor, basically. Anti-tank gun shell. Oh, yeah, reactive armor. Okay, yeah. So outfit-wise, due to outfit expansions, can make extra armor shield capacity completely broken balance-wise. IFF transponders exist for a reason, so the free worlds argument does not... does fall a bit flat to me. I mean, yeah. Sirius Blue Jewel. I think there is some kind of hyperspace internet data relay system, but it is too slow for instantaneous communication, but it only sends data once every hour or something. Faster links exist, but they are expensive, basically paying roaming fees. Doom says that's not using numbers thing is also just how Americans describe quantities, isn't it? It's not an area of 147,000 square meters. It's bigger than a football field. The game is in American English rather than British English, so that just be in keeping with that. I mean, sure, you can go that route, but I think it's more just a, you know what? Yeah, we'll stick with that. That's completely true. What Doom said, that's canon. That's how it works. Nuke says a jump making a day pass brings up a silly amount of questions if you think about it. Don't think about it. If I recall correctly, isn't there a hyperspace radio communication during the Free Worlds campaign as the Pug invade? There's a few of them during the campaign. And actually, this is part of why I talk about how I think it makes sense to say there is a delay, even though it's not explicitly stated really at any point in the game, is because so many missions are you traveling from one system to another and just talking to somebody at the system you end up at. If there was no delay in communicating between systems, why would you ever bother traveling to another planet to talk to somebody? You wouldn't. You would just pull up the HoloNet or whatever it is and do a space Discord call, a space Skype call or something. Zoom them, space Zoom. But given the fact that there are so many missions where you are traveling to a location to talk to somebody, I think that kind of implies, like, the reason you're doing that is because it wouldn't be simple or easy to have that same conversation going through the space net, the hyperspace net. In the few cases that happen in the story where you are talking to somebody through the hyperspace net, it's usually like you're receiving information, like a message from somebody, but you're not having a instantaneous back and forth communication or a conversation. You have to investigate, but that's because there's no hyperspace connection to the affected systems. Yeah. Isn't there even dialogue line about lost communication with some systems? I think you're talking about two different things. Yes, the hyperspace communication relies on the hyperspace links. So when those links are severed, you can't talk to the people on the other side anymore. But at the same time, there are also missions that have communication that occurs across the hyperspace links. I mean, that's what a lot of missions are. Like, you know, when the dialogue pops up, it's like, hey, first, last, how are you doing? That thing I asked you to do earlier, or that thing I was doing earlier, I'm done. Please show up on this system or at this planet to keep talking to me. I mean, that's very clearly a message that's been sent through the hyperspace net for you to respond to, but it's always sent as an email. Yeah, Doom says it's like yeah, it's like email. It just takes time for the email to actually show up at its destination. Lynn says, so they're like Stellaris hyperlanes? I've never played Stellaris, so I wouldn't know. Anybody who's played Stellaris, expand. I bought the game like a few years ago and just never played it. As a classic Steam player does. I think it was on sale. And I was like, oh yeah, I'll buy it. All right, well, the next submitted question, why does the map have a limit if the sky is endless? Which map? If you're talking about the systems map, I mean, there's only so many systems, but you can just hold W forever and ever and ever. So the sky is endless. Doom says not a million miles away from from Stellaris hyperlanes, but quite different in terms of how long it takes to cross them. I'm guessing Stellaris hyperspace lanes don't take a single day. And you don't need to fly to specific points in systems to make the jump, of course. So I guess for Stellaris you do. Katan asks, can we use Pug Tech to open hyperlanes between places, lore-wise or not? The way that the Pug technology during the campaign works is that it's suppressing the link that's already there. They didn't actually break the link. They just made it so weak that it can't be used by human hyperdrives. When we restore the links, we are, we're just kind of turning off that tech that was suppressing the links. Now, I do realize that I think there's a few extra links that exist after the campaign is done that didn't exist before. I mean, most of those are to Deneb, implying that they were always delaying or, suppressing those links. Or it could also mean that those links never existed, and they made those links, but suppressed the rest of the links. And I think that's probably closer to what happened. Because we do know the Pug are capable of making links, but the tech they use that we found and we also used during the campaign isn't the same tech that is used to create a link between systems. So, yeah, there's two different things that were going on there. There's the tech used to make and break links, but then there's the tech used to suppress a link. And we were interacting with the link suppression, not the link creation deletion stuff. Lynn says basically putting a wall in the middle of a bridge. Yeah, that's more or less what happened. Blowing the jamming signal, yeah. Nick says, on the first Saturday of every month, I get really motivated to write some endless sky code. I feel like making something that can't be plug-in defined, able to be plug-in defined. What would you like me to look at? I mean, I don't really have anything off the top of my head. I don't know. Anyone else? Pick an issue, any issue? Yeah, that's kind of how it goes. Villager says, but what if maybe the player might be able to steal some of the link creation tech? They wouldn't let you. It's not going to happen. Cupcake says, I guess creating links is a bit more difficult than stealing a Pug's hard drive. Yeah. Or jump drive. All right, well, there's only one more submitted question left. In terms of more complex mechanics, which one would you want that would be very time-consuming to add? Not sure. I mean, how time-consuming are we talking? Nick says there are 822 issues. I was hoping someone would say this. I mean, you can narrow it down by looking at what's milestoned. If you look at 11.x, there's only 228. So that narrows it down about a fourth. I really would just say look through the 0.11.x milestone. That is stuff that we definitely want done at some point. It's just not slated for the next release, because stuff that we slate for the next release is usually stuff that we plan to work on ourselves, or at least have like tossed in somebody's direction to be like, hey, could you work on this? So like everything that's 11.3, I mean, you could also start with the stuff that's marked for 11.3 and just ask if anybody else has started working on it yet. I mean, anything that's marked with a pull request is already being worked on, of course, but highest priority would probably just be bugs that are marked for the next release. If there's not already a pull request open for that, then it probably means that nobody's looking at it right now. Any chance of adding an autopilot toggle to the main flagship? I mean, I don't think it would be difficult to do. To basically turn your flagship into an escort, and then you use escort commands to command your flagship. I mean, yeah, could potentially. But would we add it? I don't know. I probably wouldn't. Somebody else might. Mockdiv says, I mean, if somebody wants to redo NPC travel directives, that would be awesome. Oh yeah, we could probably. What are some features that have been removed that we want to re-add, and they were removed because they were poorly implemented? I think NPC travel instructions is one of them. There's an old pull request that Peter opened that adds an ability for missions to teleport you between locations. It was very buggy. If you want to work on that, you can work on that. I don't know how time-consuming some of these would be. If the question is, I guess going back to the question of time-consuming from the submitted questions, but in terms of what Nick is looking for, I mean, yeah, grab some of these. Gameplay question. Could there be a circle the wagons command to give to your fleets, like gather to me right now, but something more like, if anyone's ever seen Ender's Game, the final scene where they protect the primary ship with the more expendable ones? I mean, we already have the gather around me command, so your ships do kind of stick toward, like, close to you. But there's nothing where it's like, okay, now make sure you're tanking the hits for me. Regarding fighters and drones, why are drones not able to be loaded on standard fighter racks? Drone racks, I can understand not being able to have a normal fighter. Just a code limitation? Yeah, it's just a code limitation. I tried to fix it once, but it's actually a bit more complex. Given the fact that each bay can only hold a single category of ship, it actually makes it very simple to handle. Because when your ships, or when your fighters and drones are like, okay, I want to now dock at my carrier, all they have to do is see, okay, is there an open drone bay? Is there an open fighter bay? I'm going to take it. They don't care, where it is. They just go immediately to the next one they can find. As soon as you say, okay, fighter bays can hold both drones and fighters. Okay, imagine you have two carriers. One carrier has, each carrier has a fighter bay and a drone bay. For both carriers, they're full when you take off. So you have two fighters and you have two drones. You deploy them. Then you recall them. What your drones might do is say, oh, the first carrier has two open bays I can land in. So I'm going to go to the first carrier. Your drones are now taking up one drone bay and one fighter bay on the first carrier. The second carrier has a fighter bay and a drone bay. The first fighter says, oh, I can dock in that fighter bay. The second fighter says, I have nowhere to dock. Because there's no open fighter bays. Because one of the drones should have gone to the drone bay first before it used the fighter bay. So there's extra logic that needs to be put in there to make sure your ships are docking in the proper order and in the proper bays in order for you to maximize how many things you have docked at once. I tried adding something for that, and it partially worked, but it sometimes broke. It was very finicky. I just kind of tossed it aside. I do eventually want to take that back up and make it so that fighter bays can dock drones. Just because I feel like part of the reason drones are just so kind of crappy right now, at least in the human space, is that you have to have a drone bay to dock them. So if you don't have a ship with a drone bay, you're not using drones, even though you theoretically could if you could fit them in a fighter bay. It would just make drones a bit more enticing to use, I guess you could say, if you could always bring more of them, because you can always bring more drones than you can bring fighters. But it just didn't turn out to be as simple as I thought. Americat says, to be honest, the fact that the game has a minimal time unit of a day probably is something we should ignore if we're trying to build lore. It shouldn't take you a day to take off. Remember, you forgot to get something on Outfitter and land again, but it does. Yeah. I think of it as when you land, you're not just like repairing your ship, but you're also like going to stock up on food because like you have to eat. And you're doing other repairs to your ship. I don't know. You're doing some maintenance that might not just be the usual repairing of the hull. And then you're probably sleeping somewhere, I don't know. So you can imagine there's a bit more that goes on when you land than just what you, the player, do. Like if you go to the outfitter and then the shipyard, or maybe you only check the spaceport and then take off immediately, you can imagine the in-universe is actually more going on than just that. I mean, refueling happens in the background. Like you don't have to manually worry about refueling. Warp says, wasn't that Rising? I guess referring to the teleporting one. Maybe it was, I forget. But yeah. Yeah, Lynn says the moment you allow both types to dock on the same type of rack, it gets a lot more complex, yeah. There's ways to do it, and I know how I want to change it to be different than the method I was trying to do originally. I just haven't gotten around to it. I think what we need to do is, right now, like I said, fighters and drones just look for, okay, what's the first open bay I can find? Okay, I'm going to dock on that ship. Really what needs to happen is that fighters and drones get assigned to a bay. They remember which bay they came from, and then when they go to dock, they only ever use the bay they were assigned to. That way, as long as you can fill all the bays when you're landed, then you can ensure that when you deploy fighters and recall them, that they will go back to where they need to go to and fit in the right order, Tetris style. The one thing you still need to worry about then, though, is what if you capture a fighter or a drone while you're in flight? Let's say you have 2 fighter bays and 2 drone bays. You take off with 3 drones and a fighter, but then you capture a fighter. What do we do then? Do we try and say, oh, a fighter is worth more than a drone, therefore you should dock 2 fighters and 2 drones and leave the 3rd drone out to dry? Or should we leave the fighter you just captured out to dry? Or should we leave the fighter that you came with out to dry and take the fighter you just captured? Stuff like that does get a lot more troublesome. Although I guess to be fair, though, that's actually already a problem right now. If you capture a cool new fighter, but all your fighter bays are already full, then how do you take care of the new fighter that you just captured versus the fighters you already had? I think you can make it so that you can... I forget. Are you able to send individual recall commands to fighters? Because if you can, then you would just recall the new fighter first, then recall everything, and whoever gets left out is left out. Sucks to be them. Did someone mass ping? Yes. Peacemaker says assign fighters to ships. Yeah, I didn't scroll down to that comment before I read it, and before I said what I said about assigning them. The day that you land is generalized, yeah. All right, let me make sure I'm not falling behind again. And checking Twitch. Nothing really new there. Lynn says personal option. Opinion? The outfit menu could be better, but it could also be so much worse. What improvements would you like to see if you think it could be better? There are no more submitted questions, by the way. I mean, if you want to guarantee a question gets answered, you could submit it. But otherwise, I'm just looking at the two chats right now, and we are closing in on an hour, so we'll probably get close to wrapping up soon here. But now it's just a general open, say whatever you want, ask whatever you want. Give me a moment, need to find something. All right. The Americat says, I think you can launch all fighters, tell one specifically to hold position, then recall the held fighter, and the held fighter will just sit there twiddling its thumbs, but that's probably neither here nor there. Shout out from a very minor Knave contributor. I think the Emerald Sword Bounty is live on Nightly. Ooh. This is huge. Any ETA on preset thing being merged and next stable having it in? Which preset thing are we referring to? Oh, loadouts. I'm going to change this. I'm guessing that's what we're referring to, the loadout panel. Because the name of the feature changed, but the pull request title did not. Yeah, I'm just going to change it. I don't have an ETA at the moment on this. It's admittedly not been on my plate to look at. So I wouldn't put it at a high likelihood it'll be in the next unstable. Or the next stable, either or. But it is something I'm interested in. So maybe later in the year, just not the next big update. Unless someone else gets to it first. But as for me, I don't have any plans to look at it in the immediate. I'm looking at, I have a bunch of my own pull requests open that I have largely wanted to look at. So, I guess for anyone who hasn't been keeping up with the things I've been posting in the chats recently, there is now a new feature that's been merged from Thrawn CA. When you capture a ship, if it has illegal goods on it, like nerve gas, it'll tell you. In the little chat window on the right side, after you've captured the ship, it'll say, hey, your crew found 15 nerve gas canisters. And then it'll tell you, like, hey, this is illegal. You might want to be careful. On top of that, I'm making it so that when you do get fined, so right now, if you get fined when you're scanned, it'll tell you you were fined by the Republic for 1 million credits for having illegal goods on your ships. Okay, which ship? What goods? I'm updating that dialogue. It'll tell you which ship was scanned and what it was that got scanned. Then, adding a feature so that you can jettison nerve gas out the airlock, even if it's installed. So if you capture a Marauder ship and it has nerve gas on it, and you don't want to get scanned with it, instead of having to land before taking it off, you can just throw it out the airlock. That's something I want to do. What else do I have? If you've ever used the tractor beam before, and you notice how heavier outfits, if you jettison an outfit, and it's very heavy, the tractor beam takes forever to pull it in, because the heavier outfit is, the heavier an outfit, the slower a tractor beam pulls it. There's outfits that are so heavy that they disappear before your tractor beam can pull it in. That sucks. So I'm just going to make it so that mass doesn't matter anymore. Any flotsam, anything that's been jettisoned is going to be pulled in at the same rate for a tractor beam. What else do I have here that I like? There's going to be some behind-the-scenes / under-the-hood changes I'm looking at doing. Some things that should improve performance when you have a lot of ships, and changes that will just generally make it so that it will be easier to add certain features. For example, what I want to do is make it so that we have outfits that... Actually, backing up. If a fighter or a drone is docked on the carrier, and the carrier is already fully healed, and it has its own healing outfits, like shield generators, hull repair, it will actually use them to help repair the fighters. That's only if the carrier is completely healthy. If the carrier has taken any damage, it heals itself first. I want to add a feature where you can have outfits that you install on carriers that only repair the fighters and drones that are docked. That way, you don't have to worry about keeping the carrier 100% healthy before you can get your fighters back out in the field sooner. Before I do that, there are some of those under-the-hood changes I want to make first to how attributes are handled on ships to make it easier to do something like that. But yeah. Mockdiv says, question for the non-developers. Are any of you interested in doing code or content review? Yes, a good time to advertise. This game is developed on GitHub. You can see everything that's in development at any given time. You can comment on it. You can review it. If you know how to code, or you know how to read the content syntax, which isn't that hard, you can go ahead and review things and help us develop the game. Nick says, or you could disable the disappear timer if an item is caught on a tractor beam. I mean, potentially. That could also be done. Although, I think it still kind of sucks that, like, if there's a super heavy outfit, it takes forever to pull in. Hence why I made the, I want to make it so it just doesn't matter in terms of the mass. I did give an explanation in the pull request for, like, how this could make sense in-universe. Because the way tractor beams are described as working in-universe is that they use the same technology as the repulsor engines. So if you don't know, the way ships take off from planets is they don't, like, face straight up and then fire their main thrusters to fly into space like a rocket would. No, they have something called repulsor engines, which is basically just anti-gravity engines. It lets you very easily escape the gravity well of a planet without expending too much energy, which implies some sort of control over gravity. Gravity control is something that is kind of touched on in other factions in the game. So the tractor beam is just the same thing. It's some sort of gravity control that is used to pull in small objects. But since it is gravity, well, gravity really doesn't care about how massive you are. You know, a feather and a bowling ball drop at the same rate in a vacuum if you take care of ignoring air resistance. Assuming a spherical cow drops at the same rate as a bowling ball. So because of that, I figured if it's already described as some sort of gravity manipulation technology, the mass of the object you're pulling in shouldn't matter. Can we make the ship info panel more manageable for ship collectors? Perhaps, some point. Ship folders, question mark. Spherical cow, yeah. Warp says if you need folders, you have too many ships. He's kind of real for that. Certain ships that cannot be purchased have really good descriptions. It would be nice if they were readable in game. Yes, that's. If you aren't aware, this game is over 10 years old. As Nick pointed out earlier, there are 822 open issues. There's a lot of requests that are like, yep, that's been asked for before. We haven't said no to it. We just haven't gotten to it yet. Linux Discord doesn't automatically detect new audio outputs. Yeah, Linux Discord, kind of crappy. It has a, okay, does anyone else use Discord on Linux and screen share? And then there's a memory leak when you're screen sharing. And it's related to the audio. You also have to be sharing your audio. This has hit me multiple times where I will start screen sharing. I'm just like crashing out at this point. I will start screen sharing, and then my memory usage spikes like crazy until I kill the stream or kill the audio on the stream. Because there's like that little option of share your stream audio. If I turn that off, it fixes it stops using up tons of memory. But it doesn't happen every time. It's only sometimes when I'm screen sharing. It's always when I start screen sharing that it does this. And if I toggle on and off, or off and on, the audio sharing, it fixes it. Just saying. If anyone else out there knows what I'm talking about. Windows must be destroyed. So true. Not even a shade for me. Nick says, what about a hide parked ships checkbox? Trying to find something that works and the devs won't object to. I would be fine with that. I would also be fine with folders. Either works. But I think that hide parked ships would just be something super low-hanging fruit that we'd be able to do like right now. Draft Tip says I need folders. Yeah, I mean folders would just be more difficult to put together, or more complex rather. Hide parked ships is a good idea, yeah. Because then at the very least, if you are, collecting ships, you can just keep the collected ships hidden and only ever carry around or keep unparked the ships that you actually want to use on the day-to-day. I have a task for today. Ooh. Having folders for sorting fleetcraft based on roles would be nice, but not completely needed. I mean, enough people have asked for it that I see it being done eventually, just as long as we figure out what looks nice. What about using existing groupings, the control number feature as your folders? Just make the groups expand and collapse when clicked on. The problem with that is you only have so many numbers on your keyboard. I imagine that even if we did do that, so like it automatically collapsed groups, people would immediately be like, oh, but I want more. Azure says, I need y'all to motivate me to write more. You can do this by repeatedly pinging me. All right, it's free range, guys. Free reign to ping. Xlord on Twitch asks, is there any plan to in making plugins possible to have planet buttons? Like above leave in the free space, that could be used. I mean, plugins can actually already change the interface. I will admit, it's kind of sucky to change the interface through a plugin because you have to redefine the whole interface. You can't just like, I want to add a button here. But then the question becomes, okay, how do we, like, what does that button do? Right now, all the buttons that are defined in the interface are hooked up to something in the engine. So I guess the question I would ask would be, what would you expect to be able to do in a plugin if it's adding a new button to a panel somewhere, to the UI? Because if you have an idea, I'd love to hear it. Because right now I'm not really sure like what would a plugin want to do for one, but then also like how would we be able to make it do that? I'm waiting patiently. Anyone else? Anyone else have any ideas? I feel like we also never got a satisfying answer to the question of what do you mean we're making progression more tedious? Ideas for what? Ideas for plugins being able to add buttons to the screen. What would those buttons even be able to do? If it's something unique from what's already available. Warp says, how many ships do you have that you have many different roles with enough ships to, and each to want to collapse the entire group? Maybe none of these people asked that question. I mean, yeah, that's what I'm asking for ideas. If you are the one who asked this question, please elaborate next time. How do you decide which things get added to which milestones? Vibes. It's completely vibes. Oh yeah, I think I can do that in within the next few months. Add it to the milestone. A lot of people have been asking for this recently. It seems like it'd be easy to do. Add it to the milestone. And then we get to the end of a development cycle, and there's still a bunch of stuff in the milestone that nobody got to. It's like, oh, just kick it off to the next one. We'll get it eventually. Can we get a simulator for ships like Star Sector? That one's called having a extra pilot with the World Forge or Omnis or all content plugin installed. A vanilla sandbox start would be fun, to be honest. Like an in game vanilla sandbox start. You unlock it by doing something extremely tedious and stupid. I mean, yeah, we could do something like that. Warp says if it's like Star Sector, then no. Gunsights win. Catan says planet exploration, like landing on a planet and going through a city for questing and stories and the like. A button that works in space to activate specific devices / functions to fire mission scripts and whatnot. Okay, we're getting a little out there. Or something like that. Okay, well, the guy responded on Twitch here. Let me read this. Well, I had an idea to show a screen panel, like the player info panel, but only available at a specific planet. I have a text screen that looks really ugly in sidebar used by Spaceport, so therefore a whole planet looks way better. I'm not following. Displaying a panel like the player info panel only at a specific planet. Warp says, I do not understand. A plugin can't create a new panel anyway. Yeah. I mean, that's what I'm getting at, though. Like, what would we want to be able to see that a plugin could do? I mean, go ahead, add a new button there. It's not going to do anything. You add a button that opens the map panel. Yes, that's the one thing you could do. The one thing a plugin can do is add a button to the planet panel that opens up the map. Black markets, question mark? Like a special outfitter that's just a black market plus? I mean, what's that? What's the difference between that and just adding it to the outfitter? Is Derpy cutting in and out for anyone else? Or is he just not talking? Please enlighten Azure on the terrible state of his audio. Having buttons for orders would be nice, but since I constantly forget the order keybinds. Doesn't Endless Mobile do this? Question mark asks Warp. I mean, I wonder if you could do that. Actually, no, you wouldn't be able to, would you? No. If you clicked the button, it would be sent. The button press would be sent to the main panel, wouldn't it? Does the main panel pipe things through commands? Let me check. Or does it just go down the UI stack and that AI is not in the UI stack? The AI is in the engine. That's probably what would happen. We would have to add something for the main panel to pass commands to the engine, wouldn't we? How is it doing it now? Okay, it looks like it already is passing command groups to the engine. Escort groups, that is. Where does AI receive its commands? AI step is called from the engine, which is called from calculate unpaused, which is called from calculate step, which is called from go. Which is called from the main panel. It's probably something to look into, actually. Warp says, so currently I think you could do that. It would just be that the plugin would have to be updated if you change the keybinds. Okay, yeah, that sounds close to correct. That's probably one of those things that we could merge between the Android port and the main game. Azure asks, when are you wrapping up the boring code stuff and going on your content arc? We're probably closer to my next content arc than we are when I started doing my code arc. The Maricat says, audio fine here, but also when everyone was asking you to get louder, I had to turn you down because you were already peaking my speakers. Warps is pretty sure the main panel is what collects the commands. Yeah, let me just double check here. Because AI step receives the active commands from engine. Active commands in engine is updated from where? Handle key inputs. Keyboard inputs, that is. And then handle mouse clicks, too. Handle keyboard inputs is called from, question mark, step. So yeah, it all goes through step in the main panel. Actually, no, it's AI update keys. I mean, there's a few places probably. It looks like update keys is where the key presses you did get translated into stuff in AI. The keys go on a journey. Yeah, there's a lot. AI, make no mistakes. Yeah. AI receives its commands from the ether. This is true. This is very true. Hot take, we should refactor engine. I don't think that's a serious hot take. Is it? Hot take, we should improve the game. Coldest take ever. Fubar says, cool that. Or actually, first, Azure says, we were talking about moving vanilla data into plugins. Let me just start from the start here. Something I was thinking of the other day would be great if blank slate plugins were possible. Some kind of a command that clears out all vanilla content, leaving an empty universe so the plugins could be totally self-contained, set in a different universe, etc. But to do so would require being able to select which plugins would be enabled for a given save. So you could have different saves in different other galaxies and still have saves in our good old endless sky Milky Way. Warp says, so currently I think you can do that. It's just the plugin would have to be updated if you... Oh, actually, no, that was responding to me. Azure says we were talking about moving vanilla data into a plugin. This is true. And then Fubar says, cool, that plus toggling on and off the plugins are on for a save would be awesome. Yeah, I think that's also another thing we've talked about doing. So right now, if you disable a save in the plugins menu, you have to, or enable it, you have to restart your whole game. Long term, we would like it to be the case that you don't have to restart your game to reload all plugins. There would just be like a reload plugins button that keeps the game window open, but effectively restarts the game without actually closing the window. And then if we can manage that, if we can manage to reload plugins while the game is still running, then from there you would be able to start getting into the realm of, okay, now I want different plugins active for different save files. What order are you going in? I'm reading top to bottom. But I'm also bouncing around because there's different like conversation threads going on at the exact same time. Refactor X is a hot take when it comes from people who would just make it worse if they tried refactoring it. Lynn says restarting the game is safer in my option, in parentheses, opinion, question mark. Is that what you mean? I mean, it's only safer insofar as we just haven't made a way to reload plugins without restarting the game. Small quality of life suggestion in Outfitters. List the local map at the top of the list. Easier / quicker to grab early game than rapidly collecting maps, or when rapidly collecting maps. Easy to quickly double check its installation in later game. There's a find function. Enter the outfitter, hit F, hit map, or type map, and then hit enter. And it'll immediately jump you to the local map. That's what I would suggest. I don't know if it makes, because the local map is in a special category, if I recall correctly. If we were to remove that, to move that to the top, we would be moving everything else in the special category to the top of the outfitter, which you might not necessarily want. If not that, we would be changing the category of the local map. So it would be in a category of its own, always taking up space at the top of the outfitter in a row, because categories are broken down into rows. And make it a gun, so sure. That way it would be at the top. I mean, he's not wrong. Now that's a hot take. We are shooting knowledge, yes. Map is hidden if it adds no new data, so it would not always be at the top. Well, it's not hidden now. If the suggestion is make the map hidden, then it's like, okay, yeah, that makes a bit more sense. currently says installed if you already have it. This is correct. Make it pinnable? Pinnable outfits? Huh. Maybe he's onto something. Did bro cook? Several people are typing. Make it a trade good. Who is this several people? A custom created favorites category? Yeah, that not entirely outside of the realm of possibility. What's the stance on AI-assisted generated pull requests? Well, if you would refer to the contributing guidelines, which you are required to read if you are opening a plugin, or opening a pull request, rather, because at the top of the pull request template is the acknowledgements, and it says, I acknowledge I have read and understood the contributing article. Let us go to the contributing article. And I will scroll down. On AI-generated/assisted content. AI-generated/assisted content is forbidden in Endless Sky. And there's a bunch of stuff below that, but there you go. Could the logbook get a guide section with small extra tips? And Warp asks, tips such as? I don't think a big list of random tips is actually going to be all that useful to people unless they read it all. And then they're probably just going to forget it anyway. Yeah. I have said before, I would think it would be cool if we moved the player manual into the game as some section in the logbook. But that's a lot of text for a small panel on the left side of the screen. Tip, running out of fuel is annoying. Don't. Claude Fable trying to finish the Wander campaign, but getting nuked the moment it realizes terraforming is biology related. That's funny. But yeah, as for the original question of adding a guide section to the logbook, I would not be against that. I would very much like to see something like that in the game. I think the logbook is probably a little underutilized. We could add more to it. Hence why I have a pull request that like updates the logbook a decent amount. But that's probably a later. I don't think I'm gonna get to that one soon. There's a lot of other stuff that I feel is a bit more high priority. Could we then get a part of logbook you can write in like a logbook? That has also been something that's been requested many times. I could look at doing that after the other logbook changes I have set up. Because what I want to be able to do with the logbook, right now when you open the logbook, wherever you open it from, it takes up space on the left side of your screen, but then the whole rest of your screen just kind of darkens the background. What I want to do is change it so that the logbook is like the entire screen becomes the logbook panel. The left side is where your text is, and then the right side is a map. And logs can be tied to systems. So when you click on a log, it'll highlight the systems related to that log entry. Then if we have that in place, we could do the reverse. I click on a system, or like the player clicks on a system, and then you could type in a log for that system. And then you could have a bunch of little tick marks on all of these systems for places where you've left a note. Grok, skin this user. Oh my. Okay. I will say though, what I'm talking about in terms of logbook changes, probably not anytime soon. Don't expect this to be in the next update. This is probably like a next year update at the rate that I'm doing things. All right, well, there's been no new submitted questions. Nothing new in Twitch chat. We're closing in on an hour and a half, so probably wrap it up here. How about making the game a giant auto-updating a spreadsheet with no graphics? As you fly around, your X and Y cell values change. Should I drop hundreds of dollars on a 3D printer to make, like, one thing I really want to make? Do you expect to ever use the 3D printer after that? Can you not find somebody who already has a 3D printer? I'm pretty sure there's things online you can go to where you request somebody else 3D print something for you. And ship it to you. If it's only one thing. I probably could use it for other things, it would, but it would not be cool. Question regarding 3D printing. Are there available models for the ships? Yes, there are. Somebody link it. Asset repository, yes. Who's going to get to it first? It was Warp. But yeah, all of the game assets... all of the game assets are available in that repository that's just been linked. You go to the ships folder, and inside there's all of the Blender files, which are the 3D model files that we use. I have seen people 3D print ships in the past, so have fun. You might need to change up the models a bit to be able to 3D print them. I don't know. I haven't done it myself. But they're there, if you know what you're doing. Most models are too complex to make it at small scale. Are you speaking from experience? My poor 349. Oh yeah, I'm sure there's like plenty of like the little greebles that we add. Proof that greebling is bad. Then make it not small scale. Yeah, make it life sized. I want to see a life sized 3D printed Kiv. Make them scale accurate. Yeah, yeah. 3D printing is constantly improving. Yeah, constantly improving to the point where I'm gonna have a life size shield beetle in my backyard. Okay, that doesn't look good. This thing looks wrong. I mean, actually, that's not the worst. How big is your backyard? How big is a shield beetle? Yeah, I just have my backy parked out back. All right. Any other questions? Do we lightning round? Lightning round. Just ask whatever you want. It'll be answered. Or it might be. I don't know. I'll say something in response to it. You're alive? Yes, Iraqi is alive. Also, it's YOU''RE. His alive what? The whole thing has been a lightning round. Okay. And we're doing even more lightning. Not a question, but this song slaps. I'm not playing it on stream. When does the Derby get a person ship? I don't know. Never. When I leave. When I leave, I will leave behind a person ship. Can we add a super heavy as a final campaign reward? Not to the defined final campaign. I didn't ask you to play it on stream. Okay. I'm just telling you I won't. Syndicate? No. We're not adding a super heavy to the human campaigns, if that's the question. For another campaign, maybe. Can I get a person ship? No. Well, make and a plugin. Make your own. We can cue Derpy by adding his personship. Then he will be forced to leave. Yeah, that's how the logic works out. I thought of something a while back, but had already forgotten it. Not that rare of an occurrence. What to do when I finally remember it? Probably at midnight, keeping me awake because I'm still around. I don't know. Can we all like DM you or what? I mean, if you want it to be responded to, you could put it in the submission box, and we'll get to it next month. If it's more pressing than that, Azure says at developer. At all, ping everyone. Yeah, at everyone. I have an idea. The super heavy what? Your mother. A ship. If by the point I'm free with my life, nobody's picked up the coalition yet, I pinky promise it'll get hard. I'll try harder. Becca says, I'm keeping the spirit of the Syndicate campaign. The ending gives you a pizza party and a 40% discount coupon. Dude, I have a 10% discount coupon right here for a restaurant. A local. I'm not going to name it because it'll dox my location. How long until vanilla gets pluginified, I guess? I don't know. It's honestly not that high priority for me. I think not all of vanilla. Warp says never. Not all of vanilla would probably be pluginified. It would probably be split. So there's like the UI is always there, and then the story is what becomes a plugin. And the galaxy. I will say though, there's nothing stopping a plugin from just putting a galaxy like a million units away from the Milky Way, and then just having everything happen there. So there's like no chance you'll ever bump into anything in the Milky Way. The only thing you have to worry about then is if you want to name something that has the exact same name as something in vanilla, it might conflict. Yeah, Azure said that's how all existing overhaul plugins work. And then the other thing is, yeah, Azure says just use display names if you want to use the same name as something vanilla. But also there might be some missions or things in vanilla that rely, like that only look at planet attributes and don't look at governments. If you're using the same attribute names for planets, things might pop up that you didn't expect to. So just be aware of that. But it's not like total conversions aren't impossible right now. It's just that they aren't the easiest either. So I would like to have more proper total conversion support in the future. Although, at a certain point, maybe you just tell people, delete the data folder. Use this one instead. Like, I mean, you wouldn't even need to delete it. You would just rename it to something else. Because the game is explicitly looking for a folder named data. So you could just tell people, when you install this plugin, go to your Endless Sky folder, rename data to, like, data old or something like that. And then, or like vanilla data, and then drop in this new data folder that has the total conversion stuff. You would also have to do the same thing with images and the sound folder, of course, but it wouldn't take much work to like go outside of the game to total convert things. Now, if only that'd be possible on Android. Could we make an optional Steam DLC that's a crypto miner? No. That would go against Steam policy, probably. To avoid naming conflicts, perhaps possible to have hidden preferences, like a plugin's name, plugin Bactrian, plugin Shield Beetle. Just a quick thought idea. Well, you can already use display names, like custom display names. So you can have the model name be plugin Bactrian, and then change the display name to Bactrian. In game, as far as the player is concerned, it's a Bactrian. But behind the scenes, whenever you're using it, you would refer to the plugin Bactrian. All right, well, I think it's a good place to wrap it up here now, unless anybody else has anything pressing to talk about. Any final words from our other developers here? Warp says L. Doom, anything else to say? No? All right. He says, yeah. Thank you for the words. All right. Thank you, everyone, for showing up to today's Campfire chat. Thank you for making it so that these aren't completely pointless by being in chat and asking questions. As I said at the start, we do these the first Saturday of every month at roughly the same start time. If you did not catch the whole thing, I do stream these to Twitch while we are doing them, so you can catch the replay on Twitch for a week, whenever they delete it. But we also re-upload these to a YouTube channel after the fact. The next one of these will be September 5th. September 5th. Mark your calendars for the next Campfire chat. There is a submission box where you can ask questions if you aren't going to be here next time, or if you just want to make sure that you don't forget your question next time this rolls around, you can use the submission box. But we also do answer questions from the chat while we are here. I think that's everything. Next update is next month. End of September. I guess we'll talk about it more next Campfire chat, but September 26th is going to be when the next update is for the game. Unless you play on continuous, in which case you're always getting updates. But I think that's everything. So, see you guys next time. Goodbye.